Shortly before Grandpa passed away, Miranda and I sat down to record an interview with him. We wanted to capture Grandpa's life story, to hear him tell it in his own words as he remembered it, while we still had the opportunity. At nearly an hour long, it's anything but complete, but it was amazing to go back and listen to it again. It took me back to the moment, and it was almost like he was here again, kicking back in his favorite recliner and chewing his tobacco and just talking to you. It brought me so much joy to hear his voice again. And this year has been so tough on everyone. I hope it brings you the same joy that it brought me. Merry Christmas and much love. So, you were born in what year?
1928, June 25th.
And in Piggott, Arkansas?
Yeah, Piggott, Arkansas, Clay County, Dry County.
A dry county?
It got to be dry. It was liquid first, and then they dried it up. But first came to Michigan when I was 12 years old. And when my mother and my dad was working up here, and my brother-in-law and sister was. So I came up then, and I worked in bowling alleys, setting pins, different things. Yeah. And then we went back home, and I was doing farm work while Dad was working up here, and I was supposed to get my pay in my name. Yeah. And for doing the crop, me and Garnett, my brother. Well, ended up when the crop was picked and gathered and sold, they put the money in the bank, but not in my name. So it made me mad. I was 13 then. It made me mad. So I packed my suitcase one day, and that night I caught the midnight passenger out of Arkansas. But I had borrowed my $35 from my uncle to leave on. And I got into St. Louis, and I went from there to Alton, Illinois. And I got there, I had 35 cents in my pocket. Dang. And so I slept in a parked car that night in the parking lot, and I got up the next morning, I saw
Was this like someone else's car? Or?
Yeah, in a parking lot.
Yeah.
I slept there for 2 weeks till I got a check in different cars. And but I got up the first morning, I saw O&I's Illinois glass factory right across the road from me. And so I went over there about a job, and I got hired. And she said, you can eat here. We have meal ticket books that you can use, and then they'll take it out of the check when you get your check. I said, fine. So I got the job, and I eat there once a day, and then slept in the cars at night. But then I met this boy. They had a building there next to the parking lot for, it had different games in there, pool table and different stuff for the employees to kill time in, Yeah. So I met this young kid. He came in there and got talking to him and found out his grandpa was Arthur Hollis. Some relation to Dad, but I don't know just what. And so he took me down and meet his grandma and grandpa. But he was working, so I met her, and she was real nice. They had a big 2-story house, just the two of them living in it. There were about 5 bedrooms, and the grandson stayed with them a lot of times. So the grandmother said, well, you just stay here. She says, we got plenty of room upstairs, but 3 bedrooms ain't being used. Said he comes over and stays sometimes overnight. And said, you can stay up there. Well, I didn't want to, but it was a free place to stay,
Better than the cars.
Yeah, and so then he came home, and boy, he made all kinds of living hell. I wasn't staying there. So I got out. But before he came home, me and his son and grandson was upstairs, and the house is on the side of a real steep mountain, and the kid could whistle through his teeth. He'd catch a cab going up that hill, and he'd whistle at him to stop. And then the cab couldn't get started to go back up, so he had to back all the way down to get started again. Well, that was trouble. So anyway, I didn't stay there. I went back and stayed in the parked car till I got a check, and then I got a sleeping room. And I met Jack Wallen's daughter at the theater one night. He was the sheriff in Piggott, my home. And they had moved to Wood River, Illinois. And they wanted me to come and stay there. But I couldn't because I didn't have transportation back to Alton, you know. So I couldn't stay there. So anyway, I got a sleeper room as long as I stayed there. But then I came to St. Louis and I shipped out on the boats as a deckhand, the Federal Barge Line. And we hauled ammunition and LST ships down from Lockport, Illinois to St. Louis.
When was this now? Like what year would that be?
That'd be 40. Well, 40. That's one thing gets me. I can't remember dates. Probably 42, 43, but
it was during the war.
Yeah, during the war. I'm not sure of the dates, and I can't give you any exact dates. But then I worked on the river there as a deckhand, and from Lockport, Illinois to St. Louis, back and forth, and was on there during the flood, and there's that much space to walk on the side of the barges and no handrail. Jeez. And the water was up almost to the top of the barge, and I had to walk that because I had to check each barge and make sure they weren't leaking with that ammunition in there, you know. Yeah. So I worked there for, I guess, probably 4 months. Then I came to Detroit, and I started working here at different jobs. I had 23 jobs in 24 months. Wow. Yeah, because I couldn't find what I wanted to do. And I worked for a cop downtown in an alley shop building trailers, 2- and 4-wheel trailers. I worked in a place building freezers, store freezers that wood made out of wood, but they're soaked in creosote. Oh, yeah. We had to lift them down in there and out. And then finally I met Charlie Hovader. When I lived in Inkster, I was working at the Metropolitan Airport for Slick Airlines and Tiger Airline. And I met Charlie. He lived in a neighborhood there close to me. He was a contractor. So he hired me, just nail. And I come home at night and I'm hitting Gwenny on the shoulder, you know. Thought I was nailing.
While you were sleeping.
And yeah. And anyway, he had two cousins from Kentucky, Bob and Hubert Browning. And they were A1 carpenters, so they taught me the trade, taught me how to lay out a house, which is the main thing for building. And I worked for him till that winter, and then we was working in Lincoln Park building new homes, and the inspector, or the guy from the license, came out, and I couldn't work no more because I didn't have a
certification.
Yeah, to build. So he said he had too many carpenters out of work then. So I went down, I took the test anyway, and I missed one question. He still wouldn't take me because there's too many out of work, he said, you know. I said, then why did you have me take the test if you didn't intend me to take it? But if I'd have had $100 on me, I would have got an inspector job. But I didn't know it, but the supply company told me afterward, he said, Bill, why didn't you tell me you was going down there to take a test? He said, I know you wouldn't pass it. Ain't one man out of 500 that would, because you got to know about everything, plumbing, electric, heating. You got to know the strength for what size beams to put in for different stories of houses or buildings. And he said, nobody could do it all. But he said, if you'd have had $100 to give the guy, he said, you would have had the job. Because he said, half of them don't know what they're doing anyway. You know, I said, well, nice time to tell me. But anyway, I didn't get the license to work. So finally I went on my own. And I still didn't have no license, but I worked several years without a license. And I met Dave Fuller. He was a bondsman, black man downtown. had an office down there, and he was
like a bail bondsman.
Yeah, and he had a contractor's license. So I paid him 10% of the job to use his license to get permits with, and so that worked out till he shot a man in the bar down there and killed him because he was keeping customers from coming into his place, and he was taking Dave's customers. And David warned him 2 or 3 times, and he kept doing it. So Dave went over to the bar where he was sitting drinking and unloaded his gun on him, killed him. So he went to prison. So I never got to use his license after that. So then I was doing a job on the east side, and I put siding on the house. I put aluminum gutters, trim. And I had one beam on the front porch, one joist that was bad. I tore that one joist out to replace it. That called for a permit. He said if you'd have doubled up, you wouldn't have had to get a permit. So these were 2 old ladies that owned the house, sisters, and one of them wanted to go to bed with me. And I said, oh, no. I said, I'm not going nowhere with you. So then that made her mad. They weren't going to pay me, you know. So she called the building department. She called the license division 15, 20 times a day to get me in trouble, see. So the inspector that came out, he said, called me. He said, can you meet me over there, Bill? He said, with your receipts from your material. She's saying that you didn't put the right material up and all. I said, it's all in my contract that I had her sign. I said, she read it all. So I met him there the next morning, and of course she was out there giving me all kinds of trouble, you know, trying to. And he said, well, I've got the contract here. You've got yours. He said, let's see yours. So he had them both in his hand. Well, to me, he says, it tells you the gauge of the aluminum siding and the gutters and the color and the size, everything. He said, it's on both contracts, his and yours. And he says, it's the right gauge. He says, it's down here, and it's on the receipt from the material list here from the wholesale house. So he says, I don't see where he's done anything other than what you agreed for him to do. But he said the only thing is, he told me after he got through with them, he said, you will pay him. Or he said, we'll have you in court. And he said, I'll be on his side. And so they wrote out the check for me that day. But he told me, he said, Bill, if you'd have doubled up that joist instead of tearing it out, you wouldn't need a permit. He said, this wouldn't come up. But he said, if you'll go to Lansing, take the test, get your license, you call me when you get them, and let me have the number on them. He said, there'd be no charges. He said, I could fine you or even put you in jail for this, for working without a license, you know, contracting. And I said, that's fine. I said, I'll do it. So I went to Lansing, took the test, and I got my license for everything but putting siding on. But they had a question there that I don't think anybody could answer. And so I didn't get that, but the inspector told me, he said, as long as you're doing everything else, he ain't going to say nothing if you do siding. Yeah. So I did. I did roofing, siding, carpentry, gutters.
And at this time, there's a big boom in building, right? A lot of business.
Tile inside and out, ceiling, floor, I did it all. Except I didn't do any plumbing or electrical. And so that's what I ended up. I worked for over 50 years in construction, and I bought houses for retirement, rental houses. I had 7.
So you're a landlord?
Yeah, including my own house. I had 7. Some of them single, some double homes. And things went bad, and the area went bad, and I got my houses tore up, so I finally just practically give them away. I got 6,000 to 8,000 for them.
So you had, like, I had to kind of take a loss on them?
Oh, yeah, I did take a loss, yeah. But I made money for a long time there renting. But then the last couple of years I lost, yeah. Because I was having to repair all the time, you know. But I was checked one time. Guys came out to, what do you call it, go through your papers?
Yeah.
And they sat at my kitchen table. And I said, I don't have contracts or books. I said, I don't keep books. I just keep the contracts. I keep the receipts of all my material. And he said, well, that's good. I brought out 2 boxes of them, set on the kitchen table. He went like that, you know. Well, they're pretty smart. First one came. So I invited him to have a cup of coffee, and he did. But all the time he's sitting there, he's asking me questions. How many silk suits did I buy this year? And how much did I spend on advertising? How much did I spend on taking people out for dinners and all? You know,
Why do they need to know all that?
He's just talking. He's trying to figure out how much money I'm spending, is what he was. So I told him, I said, I don't take customers out to dinners. I don't wear silk suits. I said, I got Levi's jeans. I said, that's what I wear, and I buy them at Kmart because I get them cheap. And I said, I don't have money for the stuff you're talking about. So then the next one comes knocking on the door. So he comes in, he sits down, and he starts talking. I said, he's asking me all the questions already. I said, do you want to get started on my stuff? He said, yeah. He said, we can. He said, where we do it? I said, how about the kitchen table? I said, it's clear, there's plenty of room. And I brought out the 2 cardboard boxes, one with receipts, one with contract. I said, here they are. And he said, what? He said, you don't keep books? I said, no. I said, I told your partner I keep the receipts and the contract. And so I had them for even $10, $15 jobs. So I had a receipt for it, you know. So he said, well, they went through half of the papers, and he come in the living room where me and Gwenny was sitting, and he said, well, I think you're going to be all right. He said, we only went through halfway, but he said, we've seen enough to what we want to know. He said, I'll be honest with you. He said, the reason we check you and do most of them is because you own rental property, and if it shows that you're spending more than you're taking in, he said, then something's wrong, you know. You wouldn't keep it up. But he said, you don't show that. He said, you show amount of repaired, but still you show you're making some profit. I said, yeah. I said, I wouldn't have them if I wasn't. And but he said, well, that's good. He said, you're in the clear. He said, we're going to leave. He said, we don't need to go any farther in it. And a couple of days later, I got a letter from him that showed that I was clear on that, you know. And I never had no more trouble after that, other than guys trying to stop me from working because I wasn't in the union. And they tried to stop me on different jobs, but I kept a saw, 8-inch saw with no guard on it to protect myself. And I said I had a 1.5 ton stake truck that with a big angle iron bumper on it. And I said 4 of them stopped me one day, pulled in front of me, and I said, I asked them to move the car, they wouldn't. I said, I was loaded going to a job. They wouldn't move the car, so I shoved it halfway down the block with my truck, sideways, and I said, then I backed up and took off down the alley, got away from them.
Jeez, were they just like union goons trying to like threaten you?
Trying to keep me from work, yeah, because I wasn't in the union. And then one time I was doing a fire job for Almas Realty on 4th Street, and I had the saw with a 100-foot cable on it with no guard, and these 2 guys started upstairs to stop me there, 2 big heavyweight guys, you know. And I told them I got my saw and I put it in front of me like that. I said, you don't want to come any farther.
Yeah.
He says, why? I said, because this saw is real sharp. I said, it'll cut you in half. And I said, I'm not fooling with you guys. You're not stopping me for work. So I said, they didn't come up no farther. I said, they left. Then I was doing a job in Wayne in a bar, putting a new ceiling in it. And I said, they had a guys on the line to keep me from going in when I went out the next day. And I said, it's just a half a block from the police station on the same street. So I said, I didn't try to break the line. I said, I went right straight down to the police station, and the chief was in there, and I told him what was up, and he said, he said, that ain't going to work. He said, nobody's going to keep an honest person from working. And he said, I'll go with you. Went down and got guys that was standing there, 3 of them on the line. He said, I'll tell you, you boys have got 5 minutes to be out of here. And he said, don't come back. Because he said, I got a nice jail cell down here. He said, it'll hold you and some more.
Yeah.
So he says, you are not stopping this man from working. So they left. Well, he told me, he said, do you have a gun? I said, I got a rifle. He said, well, bring it to work with you, because we're up in the ceiling, the bar, putting new joists and beams in. He said, bring it with you, because I told him I'm going to work at night. I said, I don't figure they'll bother me then. He said, well, bring your gun with you. And he says, keep it up in the ceiling with you. He says, I'll have my officer come by once an hour. He said, he'll knock so many times. You can decide on how many times you want him to knock. You'll know it's him. He says, if it ain't his amount of knock, don't open the door. But he said, if they break the door in to come in to get you, start shooting.
Yeah.
And he said, shoot to kill, because you won't be bothered.
Yeah.
But they never did come back. So I did the job, and that was it.
That's crazy that there's so much.
Well, I went through a lot of that stuff in the years that I worked with, without a license. But then I got my license. I had them for several years. I got them in the book in there for each year that I got them, But then I retired when I was 65, and I bought a house in Tawas. Was going to retire there, but there's no work up there and nothing, so
Yeah.
I bought this place and sold that.
When did you buy this place? Was that in the 70s or the 60s?
55 years ago,
55 years ago.
whatever that is.
How did you meet Grandma?
Well, I was when I come up here when I was 12 years old, I met Patty, her sister, and got going out with her,
You went out with Grandma's sister first.
Yeah, and well, that was when I was 12, and I went back home in St. Louis and Alden,
Yeah.
Then I came back, and we had written each other, and we had planned on being together, and getting married later. Well, after I came back, Gwenny's sister had been Gwenny had been going to school in New York, where her brother lived, Oneonta, New York.
Yeah.
So she came home on vacation, and I met her, and I said, that's the one for me.
Yeah.
Patty was beautiful, blonde, and she was a beautiful girl, but we didn't see eye to eye on everything, and I met Gwen in, asked her if she wanted to go across the street to have a shake or a malt or something,
Yeah.
to the drugstore, and yeah. Well, we got together, and 6 weeks we were in Arkansas to get married. I couldn't get married in Arkansas because you had to be 18. I was only 17, and she was too. So we had to go to Kennett, Missouri to get her blood test and license to get married, and
What's the blood test for?
to see if everything is all right with you, that you ain't got AIDS and stuff like that, And so
Was it just at a courthouse or?
Yeah. Well, no, there's a doctor's office over there. You go get your blood test.
Oh, okay.
But then I went back, when we went back to get married, we went to the courthouse, and I got the judge to marry us, and his stenographer or secretary was our witness, because none of my family would go over there with me to get married.
Why not? Did
Said
they?
that's too young.
Oh.
And
17?
Yeah, and so McGuire, I wrote him and told him, my oldest brother McGuire, I had wrote Mom and Dad down there, and I told them I was coming down bringing when he was going to get married. And no, when I got down there, they said, no, we're not signing no papers. Well, I pulled a dirty little trick, and I said, well, sooner or later, we're going to have to get married.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting married anyway. Well, Dad took it that she was pregnant already.
Oh.
And so McGuire wrote Mom and Dad a letter. I told them, he says, Billy's just bringing another mouth down here for you to feed. Well, I had no intention of staying, but I had a riding horse down there, the little stud horse. And end up after I got married, I had to sell him to get bus fare to get back to Detroit on. But McGuire told Mom and Dad that, and Dad said no. He says, well, I wrote him a letter after Dad told me he did that. Well, I wrote McGuire a letter, and I let him know plenty of things. I said, one thing about it, I don't intend to live there with Gwenny. I said, don't intend to coming back to Arkansas at all. But I said, you have no room to talk. Dad and Mom practically raised 2 of your kids, because you lived with them 4 or 5 years after you married. I said, so did Sarah Lou and Bill, my sister and her husband. I said, so did Garnett and his wife. And Dad raised 2 of his girls. So I said, where you got any room to talk, I don't know. But he told Dad, he said, Billy didn't write that letter. Well, Dad looked at it and read it. He said he did write it and said, he's right, McGuire. He said, everything he's got in there is actually what happened. And he said, you know it too. But McGuire and I hadn't spoken for several years because we got into a fight in Detroit, and I broke 3 ribs for him.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was over a telephone bill. He let me put a telephone in my name, and I was a couple of days late sending it in, so he was going to cut me with an old Navy knife, you know. So he was standing by 2 steps going in the apartment, and I hit him so hard he went sideways and broke 3 ribs. Well, Johnny Canfield, which is my cousin, lived there, and then he stopped him. And after that, we never talked, you know. So before he died, though, I made the trip to Arkansas especially to try to make it up with him before he had cancer, and I knew he was going to die. And I figured I'll make good on my side. I don't know how he'd take it. Well, he had a car lot down there at the corner. And I went in his office, he's sitting there, and I spoke to him, and he looked up at me, hello. And that was it, you know. And I said, well, Mac, I said, I came down to apologize for the trouble we had and for not being together all these years. I says, I just want to make it right with you. And he says, ain't nothing to make right. I said, okay. That's
As in he'd forgiven you, or he just didn't want to?
No, he wasn't. No.
Oh.
And I said, well, that's up to you, Mac. I said, I've done my part. I said, I tried to make it right with you. I said, you don't want to. I said, that's up to you.
And at that point, that was many years later.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't see him no more till he died. I went to his funeral. But even one of his own daughters wouldn't come to his funeral because, well, him and his wife had separated. She couldn't take him no more. And he worked at Eloise till he retired. And went back there, and they bought opened up a car lot. And his second wife got everything he had. His kids got nothing. And she was from Detroit here. But then I met Gwenny, and we married, and I went into business, and it lasted 71 years. So I figure I picked the right one, you know, to last that long. And I miss her. I miss her a lot, believe me. I wish she's still here. I don't know why God took her and not me.
What are some of your favorite memories of Grandma?
Yeah, well, I don't know, honey. She put up with me so much, but she was willing to do anything I want, and she got along with Mom and Dad real good, because she's a good Christian, and she knew the Bible, which her and Dad, man, they were like that.
Because your dad was a minister, right?
Yeah, he was a minister before, and well, he came. I used to go down and get him in the summertime and bring him up, and he'd stay with me 2 or 3 weeks and work with me, you know. But one time, Gwenny, who was funny, Dad liked his biscuits, you know. So Gwenny was going to make some for him for breakfast. It turned out like pancakes. And he says, these are good cookies, Gwenny. Gwenny looked at me. I laughed, you know. But times like that, it was good, And moved them up here. I rented them a house across the street from one of my rentals, and it was a friend of mine owned it, so I rented it. It had electric heat. Well, that's expensive, So I bought Dad a gas burner and put it in there, and they moved up here. Larry moved them up. Larry Shepard.
Yeah.
He moved them up here in a U-Haul trailer, and we went out and I gave him a lot of furniture, and they went out and bought a washer and a dryer, and I think it had a stove and refrigerator in the house, and I rented it. And they got a couch and a bed, stuff that they didn't bring with them, that they needed, and but they only stayed 2 or 3 months. Back to Piggott, they had to go.
They just didn't like it up here? Or?
No, I don't know what it was. He just wanted to go back home.
Yeah.
He didn't like Detroit, really, and he just wanted to go back home. So Larry took him back home, moved him back, and after that, I would go down there in the summertime, maybe 2 times a year to visit him, but I couldn't stay long, and Mom had her stroke, and Garnett came home from Oregon and stayed with them a year and helped Dad and Mom. And
Steve was telling me that Garnett was kind of like the troublemaker in the family.
Well, he used to be my troublemaker.
Yeah.
I got blamed for everything that went wrong.
Yeah. He would blame. He would do something and then blame it on you. Say Billy Ray did it.
And so when Mom and Dad died, they left $200 or $300 for each of us. They didn't have nothing, but they had a lot of furniture. He'd bought this house, a new house, and he had the old steel wash kettle, cast iron, big one, which was worth a lot of money. And he had quite a few things that was like antique, and he had collected. Well, after they died, I came back to Detroit, and then they notified me they're having an auction, selling his house and everything he had, so I went back. McGuire had stripped the house of everything that was worth anything.
Jeez.
Took the kettle and everything that was worth anything at all. And so they had the auction. It didn't bring out very much. Like I say, we had $200 or $300 a piece they gave us, because Mom had a stroke. They had a woman come in there 2 or 3 times a week to help Dad with her, but they kept their money under the mattress.
Yeah.
And she stole it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that hurt, because Dad and Mom always saved and put away. And, I couldn't go down there and live because I had the 7 kids. And Garnett, he came from Oregon and stayed with them a year and helped Dad. He take Mom in and out of the bathroom, give her a bath, everything. It was just like Sherry is with people,
Yeah.
He could do that. I couldn't have done it. And even if I could have moved back down there, but I couldn't. But then after he left, Dad, all he did was run him down because he drank.
Yeah.
He would go and get whiskey and bring it back and drink it, and that. Of course, Dad didn't go for that. I went home one time off the boats. I took a 5th of whiskey with me because at work in the wintertime, working outside on the decks, if you take 1 drink of whiskey, it warms you up inside and you don't feel the cold that much.
Yeah.
So that's what the pilot and the captain told me. But the only thing was, the captain, if he took a 5th of whiskey on there, he got half of it.
Yeah.
That was
That's
for letting
price.
you bring it on,
Yeah.
So this one guy, we used to play poker on the boats, and I won some money from him, and he didn't have money to pay me after the game, and so then he jumped ship in Lockport, Illinois.
Wow.
He didn't show up when we got ready to leave,
Jeez.
Well, we pulled 2 trips, he didn't show up, so I told the captain, I says, I guess I'm just out the money. He said, no, you're not. He said, he's got a lot of clothes in his locker down there. Take them and sell them. I did. But then he came back after that, got back on the boat. He found out I sold all his clothes. He's going to throw me off the stern of the ship where the propeller is.
Yeah.
And we lost one man on there. Picked him up in net pieces.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, well, you go in that propeller, it just chops you
Yeah.
all to pieces. So this guy, he was mad because I sold his clothes. And so he got me. He was going to throw me back in the water. In the
He was
back
actually
of-
going to do it.
Yeah, he was going to do it. So I wrapped my legs around his waist and my arms around his neck. I said, when I go, you go.
Wow.
So the captain saw us down there and he come down and stopped it.
Oh, boy.
And but we was froze up in the river for 3 days in Kankakee, Illinois, one time in the winter, and had to wait for the icebreaker to come through to get us out. So we went to cut a sapling for a flagpole in the front of the barge, and had an eagle's nest in it, and I caught a baby eagle.
I was just gonna ask you about eagles. That's really funny.
And so the pilot, Dick, he said, Bill, he said, you got to take that back to the ship. I didn't know it was illegal.
Yeah.
I just thought it was another bird, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, you can't take that back to the ship. It's illegal. You can't have an eagle to keep it. So he said, besides, the mother sees you got that eagle, said she'll rip your head off.
Oh, yeah.
Well, about that time here, she come down, and boy, she's squawking, and her talons looked like they were 5 inches long, and she just missed my head. And so I dropped the eagle. I put it on the ground, and I got away.
Yeah.
She made one more swoop, and that baby eagle was gone, man, with her. And then when we went down the river and the flood was on, we went under a bridge, and I was up on top of the pilot house, me and my cousin. And I reached up and I got a pigeon out on the bridge. I was going to eat him. God, the cook on the ship, he said, no, I ain't cooking no bird like that. So we didn't have pigeon that night. But when we hooked on the LSTs to bring them down from Lockport, my captain was in charge of that LST. And they got into it one time, the one that was chief on the LST, he was telling my captain what to do. The captain says, you don't tell me what to do. I'm in charge. Both ships. He said, you do what I say.
Yeah.
But we used to go back and forth with crews and play cards at night. One night be on our boat, next night be on the LST, you know. And we had a lot of fun. But we had a woman, a man, and his wife was a cook. And we had not a waitress, a laundry woman. And she used to do our pants and a shirt, wash and iron them for $0.25.
Yeah.
So that's how we got our laundry done, you know. And so I ended up in Detroit and ended up with my own license, construction, and I worked in until I retired, which was the only work I ever found that I really liked, you know. So I stayed with it. And I advise anybody today, if they want a good trade, it's construction, you know, or electronics. The electronics is good today. But now, my wife died two and a half years ago nearly, and I said, I'm here alone, but my kids have all been with me. And Sherry, if it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have made it. I'd have killed myself, I'll be honest with you. But she stuck with me, and she's still with me. And Sharon, she helped a lot. Robert sure had, not in money ways. He's helped me, give me money to pay bills and all of them. And because all we had saved in bonds and stuff, we lived it out, you know. And I was going to go borrow money on the house, and Kathy said no. She said, we'll buy it, and you can live there as long as you live. So Gwenny died over 2 years ago, but now I'm still living here free rent. I pay all the other bills. And the only money they've been out on, they put a new furnace. And he coming down and he bought some jacks and a 4x4 to jack up the house with. But other than that, I've done all the repairs on the house. Robert put a new roof on his whole front.
Yep.
And new gutters. And drip cap everything on it. And out of his own pocket. Him and I don't know who it was working with him at the time, but the two of them did it. And I helped some what I could help.
You've been here a long time.
I've owned it 55 years, but I've been here about 52 or 53. But it took me a couple of years, well, a good year to get it where I could move in.
Yeah.
You know, but I was robbed so many times when I left Detroit to come up here weekend to work on the house.
Like the place was robbed?
Yeah. So they stole, I had a double-barrel Derringer that was my great-great-great-grandfather who went through the First World War.
Jeez.
And that my dad had, and he gave it to me to keep because he didn't figure McGuire or Garnett would keep it, or Sir Lou.
Yeah.
So he gave it to me to keep. Well, they stole that. We kept usually $100 worth of candy for the nursing home in the bedroom, and they took that. Winnie had a box of cherry chocolates one weekend on the table by the bed where they laid in our bed and eat that and left the wrappers and everything there.
It's insane.
They stole her fur coats and underwear, even stole her underwear.
That's got to be some kind of...
And
You got to be insane to do that.
well,
Who does
I
that?
think the girl across the street had her hand in it, but of course, darling Carla Kellum's sister, the one that had the little boy that wasn't right, but she kept him, but she was selling dope
Yeah.
all the time we lived there, and her sister's husband was a detective, so he kept the cops away from her, you know. I know that's what it was.
That's
Her
a shame.
Danny used to go there and buy it from her. And but she never seen nothing, you know. None of my neighbors ever seen anything.
Yeah.
And so the fifth time I told Gwen, I said, I'm leaving, I'm moving to Brighton, even though the house ain't ready all the way, but I said, I'm going. I said, she said, well, I'm not moving up there. I said, okay.
Detroit was already getting kind of scummy.
Oh, it
at
was
that
bad then, yeah. So I said, well, I'll take what I need. And I said, you can have the house here and the rest of the furniture. I said, I'll just take a bed and a TV and what I need to get bound. Well, when I backed the trailer up, started loading up, well, she gave in and came with me. But it took her a good 5 years to get used to it here. She missed Detroit so much because she was a Detroit girl. She was born and raised there, you know. She went to school in New York one term, I think, was all. And that's the only time she ever lived out of Detroit. But after 5 years, she was satisfied here, and Brighton started growing, you know.
Yeah.
There was nothing here when we moved here.
Now it's huge.
I know, and it's getting bigger. They're building 3 big hotels. They're building a hospital like they have in Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
St. Joseph up here. And they're building a new bank up here by Kroger's on Grand River. Oh, this town is growing. It's going to be another Novi before it's over. I'm not kidding you. Well, they advertise it as the best place in the state to live, you know. And they've done a lot for Brighton. I mean, they've built it up, and but you can name any kind of a restaurant you want, and it's here.
Yeah.
Any kind of bank you want, it's here, you know. And they're building more. And I've got the same phone number that I had when I lived in Detroit.
Really?
All the time I lived in Detroit, yeah, I've got the same phone number now on my cell phone. They usually won't change a house phone to a cell phone. But I told them, I said, that I want my same number or nothing.
Yeah.
And so they give me my same home phone number, so I still got it, because everybody in this Michigan or any other state where I got relatives know my number because I've had it so long, you know. And I don't want it changed. When you hear about the one I just got, they couldn't put it in my name right off, so they give me a name, Geraldine, I think it was, because that's who owned the phone before.
Oh.
Doyle gets a lot of fun out of calling me that. He asked me if he come down to help me on the floor. He said, "You still going by Geraldine?" I said, "No, that's over." That's about all I can tell you, John.
I appreciate it.
I know other things happen in the meantime, but my memory just ain't what it used to be, and
No, this was great.
I can't
Grandpa.
remember it all.
This was great. I appreciate it.
A lot of things happen that I wouldn't have known anyway. I used to be a heavy drinker, and then I quit, but it was bothering my legs climbing. And of course, she didn't like it. So everybody that worked for me, Billy Ray and all of them, had a van and had a bar in it, or a refrigerator to carry their beer in it.
Yeah.
I did too. And when my legs started bothering me, we went to work one day, and I said, "Boys," I said, "no more drinking on the job." I said, "I quit drinking." I said, "You guys are going to quit, because it's costing me a lot of money. You take 5 or 6 guys." I had 2 crews, and the 5 or 6 guys sit down for a half an hour to drink beer, and I'm paying them that half hour, and I said, "I'm not too much money on wasted time." I said, "There'd be no more drinking on the job, no more bringing beer on the job." And I said, "Anybody that can't do that, there's the car, there's the road." I said, "I'll tell you now," I said, "I'm not drinking myself, I'm quitting. I'm not going to be drinking on the job." So I said, "You guys are going to do the same thing." And it worked out. They quit drinking on the job, but I had to because my legs were climbing.
Well, I mean, we got the genes. It runs in our family.
Yeah.
I mean, real hard. Runs in our family.
So,
Was it hard to quit?
no, I didn't have no help. I didn't take anything for it. I just said I quit,
Didn't
and
do
I
the
quit.
AA or any of that kind of stuff?
No, never. No. John, if you want to do something, you can do it.
You do it.
You just make up your mind, that's what I want, and do it. But you don't need no help. I mean, actually, if you really want to do it,
Yeah.
No, some things like you was into, I don't know, you probably needed help, but for just ordinary drinking or smoking. Now, I got a pipe here. I get a package of tobacco once in a while, and I'll smoke that package of tobacco, then that's it for a long time, But my chewing, I can't quit that.
Yeah.
I just can't quit it. I tried.
So I'm the same way with the nicotine. I quit all the other stuff, all that hard stuff, and
Yeah.
bad stuff. But
Yeah. But then I met Agnes a little over a year ago this last May. And talking to her, I found out her name, and it was the same name as my wife's last name, Caldwell. So we were talking, and I asked her, I said, "Well, do you go to church?" She said, "Well, I haven't been since Christmas because I got my car wrecked. A woman wrecked my car, and I had transportation." I said, "Well, I go every Sunday to Novi." I said, "It's a big church." I said, "If you want to go to church, you can ride with me to church." And she says, "Well, that's good." She said, "I'd like to." So I took her phone number, and we talked. And she called me the next day, and I said, "If you want to go Sunday," I says, I gave her my address. I said, "Come down to here," and I said, "We'll go in my car from here to church." Because she lives up there, just the other side of Sherry on Grand River. And so she didn't know how to get here, so she called me back and had me meet her up the corner of 23 and Grand River, the drugstore there. Well, then, after we come home from church, I brought her down here to show her where I live. So from then on, she would meet me here, drive down to here, and then we'd go in my car from here to Novi, to church. And she's been going pretty regular with me. I think we've missed probably 2 or 3 weeks, Sundays, and not going when we was out of town or something. But, or you got company come in for the weekend, something like that. But she's a very good Christian. She got a memory like an elephant.
Oh, yeah.
She could tell you any country singer that's on TV or been on country music for years past. She knows them all, and she's met a lot of them.
Yeah.
She made a record, a song. She wrote it, and her daughter had it recorded, yeah, and she's got the CD over there to play it. I heard it, it's good. She wrote it one night at the bar while her daughter was dancing.
Yeah, she was telling me about that.
And she sat down at the table and wrote it. And but she's real nice. She can't do enough for me. And I met practically all her family in Dayton, Ohio, and here in Michigan. And they're all the nicest people, and it's like I got a second family.
Yeah.
They can't do enough for me, you know?
It's a real blessing, though.
Yeah, like that refrigerator, double-door refrigerator. I was looking for one quite a while, looking at them up at the store, wanted one. And he went out and, well, it had formaldehyde in the rug. So the new carpet, they'd had about 8 months, but it was affecting their speech. So he figured it out, looked it up on the phone, and he figured it out what was doing it. So he went back to Home Depot and then had it all tore out, taken out the whole house. Had it all taken up and had hardwood floor put in. So then he wanted to redo the kitchen, so he went and bought a new refrigerator, stove, microwave, and a dishwasher.
So that's how you...
So then he gave me that one. Just give it to me, you know. Well, I had a clock here, I'd paid $125 for it. But it wasn't running good. I couldn't keep it running all the time, so he liked it. And I said, well, I guess I got hooked on it. And he said, no, you didn't. He said, that clock's worth quite a bit, more than $125. He said, now I'll get it running for you. And he's come over to do it, and he'd been on that cruise, and he brought me that ship clock and picture of the Roosevelt that he was on. And he said, where am I going to put this? I said, where that clock is in the corner. And he said, what are you going to do with that? I said, you're taking it home with you. And he said, no. He said, no, I'll get it running for you. You like that clock? I said, I don't like it no more. Take it home with you. And I said, trade it to you. You gave me the refrigerator. I'm giving you the clock. He said, well, I owe you some money. I said, no, you don't. If anything, I owe you. And so anyway, he took it. He didn't want to, but he took it, you know. And he put that up for me. Brought that back from the trip when they went on the boat. Yeah. So they're, Mike and Kathy, they're with Agnes like Sherry is with me.
Yeah.
You know, they take care of her. And Kathy calls her every night. And every day goes by, even when they're on a trip, she calls her mother every night. And she just got, somebody charged $5,000 worth. Yeah, $5,000 on her credit card that she hadn't used in no telling how long.
Oh, fraud?
Fraud, yeah. And so she got a bill for it. And so she called Mike, which he takes care of everything for her. So he come over this morning, and he got on the phone with the bank and got it taken care of.
Yeah.
But there's somebody in Washington, I think, was one of them that bought stuff on her.